A lot of people love chess. By the way, have you known about history of chess? The history of chess is fascinating enough, and you would be impressed to see how this game has transformed over the years. The version chess today is different with centuries ago. Let's go back to the past. In India there is a game called Chaturanga. The game of Chaturanga was believed to have been invented in India around the 6th century. It was during the rule of the Guptas that the game of Chaturanga was discovered. The game was called Chaturanga because the game based on the 4 divisions of military. At the point of time, the 4 divisions of the army were the elephants, infantry, horse cavalry and chariots. In the game of Chaturanga, the king was accompanied by his general of counselor and there was no queen. The rules of Chaturanga differ from the rules of modern chess in many aspects, and though these two games had different rules. In the game of Chaturanga, the soldier was allowed to move only 1 square as part of his initial move, unlike the pawns of today, which are allowed to move 2 squares as part of their initial move. Another important difference between the two games lay in the way the pieces were arranged on the board. In the modern version of chess, the kings were placed in a diagonally opposite fashion. A chief distinction in rules is that in Chaturanga, to win, the player must eliminate all the pieces of the opponent, except their king. Hence it is very clear that the concept of checkmate does not exist in the game of Chaturanga. Another key variance is that if a player manages to stalemate the opponent, the player who is stalemated wins the game. This contradicts with the rule in modern chess, namely, stalemates are considered as a draw. When Chaturanga moved to Persia, this game underwent several changes, and the biggest revolution in the game of chess happened at this point of time. The game soon became a hit among the noble families of Persia and very rapidly became an integral part of formal education in Persia. When Chaturanga moved to Persia, it was known as Shatranj. And when you look at the rules of the version, you will realize that it is not so different from the modern version that we are now accustomed to. Nevertheless, there were still differences between the two. It was during this stage when several modern-day tactics emerged. In other words, many famous chess tactics employed today were actually derived from Shatranj. The way the various pieces were arranged on the board is not different when you look at both the games. The significant difference between the two, like in Chaturanga, lays in the fact that the pawn was not allowed to move more than 1 step initially under Shatranj. Also, just like how it was in Chaturanga, if a player managed to eliminate the pieces of the opponent, except their king, he was considered as a winner in the game of Shatranj. On the other hand, if a player managed to stalemate the opponent, he was considered as a winner. This is the polar opposite of the stalemate rule under Chaturanga. It was during this period when several prominent players emerged. These popular players wrote several books on the various strategies, openings, and tactics, also spoke of their experiences. These literary accounts by the Shatranj players were the initial contributions made to chess literature. A few noteworthy Shatranj players during this period were Al-Razi, As-Suli and Rabrab. When the Islamic conquest of Persia happened in the 7th century, the game of Shatranj traveled to all the Muslim countries. By the end, this game soon became popular in Russia and Europe. Eventually, the game even spread to Japan and China. The Japanese and Chinese improved the game of Shatranj and brought about a lot of variations, and these versions of chess have major differences from the style of chess that is played all over the world. In Japan the game was called shogi. Shogi is played on the cells of 9 by 9 squares on the board, is named shogi ban. The 3 first raws form the player's camp and the last 3 raws represent his promotion zone. The cells are slightly rectangular, longer than wider, and small points help to visualize the promotion zones. Each player has 20 men. The pieces are flat and wedge-shaped and are not distinguished by color. Ownership of the pieces is indicated by the direction in which they face, with a player's pieces always pointing towards the opponent. South, or arbitrarily designed as black, is named sente and plays first. North, or white, is named goat. And in China the game was called xiangqi. Xiangqi is played on the intersections of 9 by 10 on the board. Opposite sides are separated by a central river. Each camp has a palace, which is constituted by 3 by 3 intersection at the center of south and north sides. Armies are formed by 16 men each. Red plays at south and, generally, starts the game. Black, or blue, plays at north. In xiangqi, not all the pieces have the same name for both sides. The royal piece is a governor, is named shuai, for red, and a general, is named zhang, for black. The pawn is always a soldier, but two different synonyms are used to distinguish them. Red has Bing and black has Zhu. The elephant is named Shang, that gives its name to the game, is only for red. Black has also a Shang, but it is written differently as it is an homonym which stands for minister. The counselor is named Shi, have the same name but their ideogram is different for red. Sometimes, the same extra sign is added for red cannon, is named Pao, horse is named Ma, and chariot is named Che or Ju, as well. One reason is because color may vanish with time. Then only a different writing allows differentiation. From the beginning of the 13th century till the end of the 15th century, this game underwent a lot of changes. Several rules of shatranj were changed and newer tactics were discovered and employed. The rules that were framed during this period were soon accepted all over Europe. These rules are still in practice in all tournaments across the globe even today, and it was during this time that the game of shatranj started transforming slowly into chess. Eventually, more rules were created to ensure that the game did not take pawns to finish. The pawns were allowed to move 2 squares as a part of their initial move precisely due to this reason. The move known as en passant also came into existence to speed up the game, and in addition, it was during this time that the concept of castling was also introduced. With the advent of the 14th century, the powers of the queen and the bishop increased tremendously. The queen gained a lot of power, and there was a point in time when chess was referred to as Mad Queen chess because of the powers bestowed upon the queen. When the 15th century rolled in, the game started resembling what we are now familiar with today. Several famous chess strategies and tactics were also discovered during this era. So that's the history of chess in the world.